Right. Good morning. I'm going to do the Karakia to introduce today's meeting. Whakatakata hou ki te ilu, whakatakata hou ki te tonga, ki mā kina kina ki uta, ki mā taratara ki tai. Ihi ake ana te atakura, hei tū, hei huka, hei hohu, ti hei, māli ora. So, as I said before, good morning and welcome to the Regulation Hearing Committee meeting for the 28th of May. Everybody is present. It's not only a quorum. We have two committee members online. We have Councillor Robinson online and Chair Pauling. And in the room, we have our consents coordinator, Alison Cooper, our general manager of, acting manager of consents, John Boriston, our legal counsel, Robin Fitcher, and our general manager of regulation, Paul Holst. We don't need to do apologies. Everybody's here. Does anybody have any conflicts of interest with today's agenda items? If there isn't, we will then move on to agenda item 4. That's a public forum, deputations and petitions. There have been no requests. Takes us to extraordinary and urgent business. Does anybody have anything from the floor? We've received nothing. Okay, nothing there. No notices of motion have been received. Nothing to be put on the table, is there? We'll go back to the agenda item here. Agenda item 7, the minutes. 7.1 is the unconfirmed minutes. They're on your agenda, pages 10 to 14. Are there any matters of accuracy relating to those minutes for our meeting the 14th of May? Okay. There isn't. We've got a mover, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder for those? Councillor Swiggs. So we have a mover and a seconder there. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against. So that's carried. Thank you very much for that. So that takes us right on to our report items for decision today. Agenda item 8. There are 3. 8.1 is page 15 to 17 of your agenda. Recommendations are up here. We are looking to appoint hearing commissioners to hear and decide the resource consent application for PG and JA Everest, who are the applicants. Staff are recommending 2 members of this hearing panel, and it's to be chaired by Rob Enright, and he's to be accompanied by Shane Roberts there, and given their delegated responsibilities. Staff have provided the background, the notification, number of submissions received, quite a number there. That's why there is 2 being proposed by staff, and the backgrounds of the recommended commissioners are outlaid in the paper. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to of staff? Right, we've got Councillor Swiggs first.
Is this Phil Everest?
Pardon?
Is this Phil Everest?
Yes, I don't think it makes any difference to us who the individual is.
I know, because
does it?
I know the person.
Okay.
I do know that if it is that person,
yes,
I will step aside from this.
Okay, thank you. Councillor East.
You're just querying why in this particular instance we've had a number of applications of a similar nature that we had 2 people on a panel where quite often it's just 1. What was the reasoning behind 2 on this one?
The reasoning for 2 people is because there are at least 14 submitters that want to be heard. So we try and, if it was up to about, say, 6 or 7, we would only use a single commissioner. But if there's about 40, because of the larger number, that's why we put in a larger panel.
Okay. Councillor Edge, your question, clarification?
Just related to the background, item 3, adaptive management. Could you just brief me what that means?
I'm not a planner, but adaptive management conditions have been put in a lot of irrigation consents, and from memory, it's to they have certain times in which they can put on use water, and also it's on where and how that and how it's applied. So there's a variation within the timings and takes, and there are quite a few applications in the mid Canterbury area that have these adaptive management conditions.
Is there anything you'd like to add, John, or I can?
No, I'm afraid
Okay.
people
I'm not.
probably not the ones they've been asking.
I'm not either, but I do have a little bit of an understanding, and an example may be, depending on the river flows before the consent is able to be used, or things like that. It'll depend on how much water is available to them. So it's part of consent conditions usually. Yeah,
Just
I'm getting a nod from back.
So really what you're saying, it's kind of like a bespoke solution to this particular application.
Yes, it can be, and it depends on areas. I mean, in the past there were sort of schemes, groundwater zones and things, and a lot of the areas got different adaptive management conditions depending on where they were at and where the water came from.
Okay, if there is no further questions, we've noted that Councillor Swiggs is going to stand back from this one. Can we have a mover and a seconder for the recommendations that are up here? Councillor East is going to move that. A seconder, Councillor Edge. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Aye.
No against, so that's carried. Thank you. That takes us on to 8.2. We're looking to appoint a hearing commissioner for Belborough Holdings. We've got a recommendation for Cindy Robinson to be appointed here and delegate the responsibilities. I do note that these are legacy consents that are coming through as well, so that's good to see that they're coming through. Staff have outlined the background, notification reasonings, and the information around the proposed commissioner, who's quite familiar to us, I think, from previous placements. Does anybody have any questions of clarification with regard to this one for staff? If there isn't, that's great. Do we have a mover and a seconder for this recommendation? Councillor Swiggs is going to move that. Move a seconder, please. Councillor East. Thank you. We've got a mover and a seconder there. All those in favour say aye. Against?
Aye.
That's carried. Thank you very much for that. That takes us on to 8.3. This is around appointment of hearing commissioners for limited notifications. I just note, before I hand over to John to talk to this paper, that this is a different list to what we have done every year. It's about mid-year, so we're expecting it, I think, shortly, around the conflicts of interest and the objections and the conflicts of interest for ECAN and staff and councillors, family members and councillors, for example. So, John, I'd like, your opportunity to explain what we're doing here and why.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just quickly give an overview to provide a bit more context for the request coming here. In my limited experience of being involved as the acting consents manager, I see this as a bit of an unusual request to come to the RHC. It's an operational issue that we're dealing with, and it relates to a particular decision type, which is limit notification, no submitted to be heard, which currently is delegated, to staff, but one staff role in particular, principal consents advisors. principal consents advisors are part of the consents team. They're a limited resource. There's 2.5 FTE in there, three people involved, very senior consent staff, and they are also a resource for the organisation with their knowledge and skills. So they assist across a lot of the regulatory part of the business. The blip, my word, that we've got at the moment in regards to all the notified consents as we clear our backlog, of course, which we're seeing coming through here, finding commissioners, it's all trying to squeeze a lot through a narrow channel. We're part of that as well, because obviously there's more of these consents coming through that can be delegated to the staff for answers. In addition to that, two of those principal consents advisors are also providing support either on a part-time or a dedicated time for about 6 months to support improvement projects within the regulatory section about improving our processes and that type of thing, which we've agreed to supply the time of our PCAs for that because the consent section is also a benefactor of that work being done. We're coming to you with the outline of what we're trying to achieve, which is to confirm that we can outsource these consents to an external decision maker, which we've listed on there of a, I call it a panel for one other word. So we can, as these come across our desk, we can either manage it ourselves through our principal consents advisor, or we can sub it out to one of the people from this list as and when the need is there. We already have the right to make the decision ourselves, so we're asking for the right to be able to put it out there under our own discretion, and we can manage it. We've got to manage this temporary blip. We've got to ensure our timeframes are well managed, and we're not looking at delegating this decision-making ability to a lower level of staff than we have currently. So we want to maintain the integrity and the standards that we work to. So that's the background. I was unsure whether or not we could have made this decision ourselves to do this, or whether we needed to come here. So hence I'm sharing this with you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for bringing. It's all right. Thanks for bringing this to us for our consideration. It does make sense. We do have statutory timeframes to meet. So I'm assuming, that in order to try and meet some of our other targets that we have in the consents department, it's really important that we do this if we haven't got the people in-house. Now, Councillor Robinson and then Councillor Swiggs.
No, thanks for this. It's good to see we're actually on top of some of these issues and looking at this. However, it feels like it might be missing a step, and that if we delegate to these people, does it come to us first to agree to those people doing that particular consent?
No, our proposal is for today, and we've provided the names of the people that we would make access to, is we can manage that ourselves without the extra time frame involved of coming back to the RHC, which is not every week necessarily, but once a week. So no, we're asking, the request is that the panel that we're suggesting today is a resource available for us, as we use now for even making decisions in regards to, for instance, whether it's a notified consent or not. Sometimes we outsource to these type of people anyway within our section, and that's within our discretion to do so. So these ones would not come back to the RHC each and every time we needed to apply it.
I think if I can just help Genevieve, it's important to understand that if you've got a limited notified where there is no hearing actually required, it's got a shorter statutory time than where hearing is required. I think it's 20, isn't it? 20 working days. So it's really important that these are dealt with quite quickly if we're going to try and meet some of our user pays targets and continue with increasing our statutory time frame targets. So I think it's quite an elegant solution. Most people, these names are familiar with us. I think every one of them, I think, we're Councillor Swiggs? No? Okay, Councillor East, did you have a question?
Look, I totally support what's happening here. My question really is just around our existing list of accredited people. I take it some of them aren't able to do the short turnaround work, and how many of our existing panel fell into that category to necessitate creating this list?
This list has been created more for the purpose of coming to this forum here to get agreement that if we're using this particular list, and there's quite a few names on there, and this will be in addition to us allocate of our principals doing these decisions. Admittedly, they are a bit stretched for time, so there could be more names on this list, I imagine. We believe the numbers that we come up with are sufficient to meet the needs, and we've got enough diversity within that to meet the needs that we want.
So how many people do we actually have on our list of preferred commissioners?
It's 15 or 16, I think, but some of them are probably more specialised and not as well experienced in being able to sort of turn around and give a good written decision. So, because a limited notified, it requires a little bit more.
Just interested in the number.
Okay, thank you. We've got Chair Pauling.
Yeah, kia ora. I totally support this. Happy to move it when we're ready. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Edge.
Just for clarification, really, the actual notification decision is still with our staff. Is that right? That this group does not determine the notification.
Correct.
Okay, if there is no further questions, we've got a mover. Chair Pauling's going to move that, and Councillor Swiggs is going to second that. Okay, we've got mover and seconder there. All those in favour say aye. Against? Councillor Robinson's going to abstain. Thank you.
We didn't really have a discussion about it.
Apologies.
Just for me, I agree that I think it's a very streamlined approach, and I think it will, because I always sort of thought, why are we asking those people to be approved by this committee when they're just simply going through that process anyway. So I think if it's more efficient way of dealing with those smaller consents that are not requiring a hearing, I think it's good. The other thing that I'm really pleased with to see in the last couple of reports and meetings that we've had, there seems to be an increase in public notifications, and that's really pleasing to me because it gives the public a chance to decide whether it's important to them or not. And I see in some cases there might be 3 submitters or 20 in the case of the last one we've just heard. So I really like that because it's open, it's transparent, and to some extent this is, those decisions are good. So, yeah, okay.
Problem was, could have kept that till 9.2, Councillor Edge, but anyway, that's fine, you've said that now. So that takes us on to report items for information. We've got the 9.1 there on page 25 of your agenda. That's noting the status of previous resolutions. There is one on the paper, which was for our last meeting. Should be pretty straightforward. No questions from anybody on that one. Councillor Swiggs, you've got one? Moved by Councillor Swiggs. Do we have a second to Councillor Edge? All those in favour say aye. Against? So that's carried. takes us on to the Resource Consent Hearing Status Report 9.2. That's page 28 of your agenda for the 28th of May. Still quite a few columns there, quite a few pages there with orange. A lot of detail being provided by staff. Just one question from me with regard to the language of suspension and suspended. Does that mean it's got a stop clock on it due to requiring additional information?
No, it's just a suspension. The applicant can, once an application is notified, they, depending on whether it's been stopped previously, and the RMA defines which they can stop. They have 130 days less any stop days, which they can use. It's an applicant's tool in which to stop the clock and maybe go away and talk with submitters, find additional information, whatever. So it's called a suspension under 91D of the RMA.
Right here. Okay, does anybody else have any questions of clarity? Councillor Swiggs?
Yeah, I was just thinking the list is getting a little bit longer than usual, potentially, there from what I'm used to. It's just wanted to be clear that there's nothing that we're doing that's holding up any of these. None of our processes internally.
Well, maybe if you wait till the next briefing paper that our General Manager of Regulations give us, that might help. So perhaps if you just pause on that one.
All right.
Is there any other questions of staff on this agenda paper, on the hearing status report?
Can I just make one comment?
You can make a comment.
Because it's the list that I take opportunity to review too when it comes out, and whilst they're all orange, which means they're not complete, some of them have got a definitive time frame that they're going to be complete by. So they are progressing. The size of the list is reflection of the decisions that have come through here, which we've now got them under process. So it's we're in a unique situation at the moment with the volume that we've got going through. Thank you.
Just remind councillors too that I think it was in our R&D committee a presentation that we had, or an update we had on clearing the legacy projects. There was a significant number, over 100 I think, that were still going through the notification process. So we are seeing, I think, the results of that now. Right, can we have a mover and a seconder for this resolution then? If there's no... Oh, Councillor East and Councillor Robinson. All those in favour say aye. Against? So that is carried. So that takes us on to 9.3. And thank you very much, Paul, for coming to the table. I think I'm just going to hand over to you to discuss this one, because this is a paper that came back as a response of questions a couple of months ago, I think, Councillor East, that you requested some information on. Was it Swiggs, was it? He's gone out of the room now. However, we haven't got time to stop and wait. So there was a request around how we were going to try and meet some capability and encourage young people. So hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the report as read in the interest of time, but I'll just make some key points. The paper is in response to questions, as the Chair's alluded to, and it tends to deal with, I suppose, the current state and our processes, the current state of where we are and the processes we follow, and really asks the committee to endorse we continue to explore opportunities to increase the pool of commissioners. Before I get to the key points, just say that the paper takes us through the current practice. And as you know, there has been a well discussed increased requirement of hearing commissioners. In the main, for ECAN, it relates to the backlog that's been going through and the way that that's being managed. Also, the I suppose the external use of commissioners across the region and indeed across the country as well. These commissioners work for other authorities, I suppose. the paper takes us through the hearing policy, consideration and issues in making the appointment, and we look at things like the sole or panel decisions, the experience, cost and availability. But I'll draw your attention to current state, which is on page 37 to 38, and I'll just quickly run through. Of the current hearing list, there are 35 notified applications requiring a hearing or decision. Of these, 6 can be decided internally under delegation, 4 require a panel, 2 or 3 commissioners, and the remaining 25 can be heard and decided by a sole commissioner. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. And I suppose the key points are that the process will continue to be managed by staff in line with the current delegations. I suppose the main thing for note is at this stage, noting that there are challenges with the number of available and suitably qualified and experienced commissioners. We still believe that the process can be managed and the timeframes can be met. We do provide the report that was just been reviewed in the committee that gives us a sense of how well these are progressing through the system. But what we are looking for further endorsement today is we're going to continue to explore opportunities to increase the pool of commissioners with the appropriate levels of technical ability, and also examine ways of increasing experience for those that don't necessarily have it at this stage as well. So there's still work to be done that we'll probably bring back to you at a later date, and I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Swiggs, would you like to raise your question again in this paper?
The question I asked before was I understand with the hearing commissioner's challenge, but I was wondering if there was any other processes within our, that we're having internally that are potentially holding up those consents on that list. I just wanted that reassurance that there isn't, so that we can focus on the hearing commissioner's side.
I don't believe there is any other hindrances.
And that's all I really wanted to know, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Edge?
Yeah, thanks for the update, just to keep us in the loop about what's happening. I think we've already, in the last item, dealt with one of those issues to streamline. I really like an item 38 or clause 38, because we had talked in the past about how do we upskill those people who are sort of not quite at that level. And we did have the idea that in some of these situations that they sit alongside a panel or maybe a sole commissioner just as a learning experience. So I mean that was one of the things we talked about. We also talked about this committee perhaps from time to time also sitting in on some of those to upskill members of this committee as well. But so those things, I think, being creative about what we could do for those. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. If there isn't any further questions on that, we've got a recommendation up here. So could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Robinson's going to move that. We have a seconder, Councillor Edge. I'll just note that staff have said that they will continue their investigations, much along what you've lined there, Councillor Edge, and we'll have a report back in due course. So that's great. The other thing, just probably I'll add at this point in time, because I think it sort of does relate to this, the dashboard that we've been looking for, we have a briefing scheduled on the 17th of June. So that'll be quite exciting, I think, to have that briefing for RHC. Right, so does anybody else have any discussion on this before we vote on it? If there isn't, okay, Councillor Swiggs.
I was actually really pleased to see this, and that the mind is moving towards it. I do find it a little bit ironic that we're looking at so much for North Island, commissioners, and I really, would look for the opportunities to find how we can better upskill the people locally. So, I'm quite keen on that, and if there are opportunities that do pop up, just bring them to us, and we're more than I think the council will be more than open to exploring those.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Our next meeting is, I think it's next week. I saw somewhere in the agenda. Our next meeting will be next week, and we'll we won't close off with the Karakia because we're going into council meetings. So thank you very much, everybody, for your attendance. Thank you, staff.